police officers. We also know that charges are going to be upgraded for Officer Derek Chauvin from third-degree to second-degree murder and manslaughter. The third-degree charge sticks. That will be there for jurors to consider, and the other three officers will be charges that were second-degree murder and aiding and abetting of second-degree murder. Those are the officers involved: Derek Chauvin, Thomas Lane, Tou Thao, and Alexander Kueng. And those are the officers that the Attorney General today will be speaking of. This comes a little over a week from the death of George Floyd, and as many of you know, it has resulted the last 7 days in trauma all over the country. There has been rioting, there has been looting, disturbances in every city, every major city around the country after George Floyd died on that Monday night of Memorial Day weekend. We've also had many peaceful protests and many people calling for change in the police departments all around the country, not just Minneapolis police, in what they consider systematic discrimination and racism on how some officers conduct themselves in the field. We will know more about the exact charges from Attorney General Keith Ellison. He was placed on this case as the lead prosecutor on a team of prosecutors just a handful of days ago. The governor made that announcement over the weekend. It is now 3 days later, and we are finding out exactly how that process is changing as the result of Minnesota's Attorney General taking over that case. This has been a rocky road for many cities, including the Twin Cities, in the last 4 or 5 days. You may remember Tuesday we began to see some unrest after this video was released. This horrific video was released all around the country. That quickly became, when the officer was charged, when Chauvin was charged on Wednesday, that did not calm the concerns of many around this country. And for the next 3 days after that, we saw massive looting and rioting, fires. We lost 120 businesses in Minnesota, mostly on Minneapolis' south side as a result of the unrest. Since then, for the last 3 nights, we have seen peaceful protests. We have seen relative peace on the streets of the Twin Cities. That is in direct result of a pretty massive show of authority and police and National Guard forces all around the Twin Cities. The state capitol was encircled by National Guard members when a credible threat was made against our state capitol. That did not result in anything that was proven, but again, they took every precaution to make sure that nothing happened there. We've seen crowds of thousands of people gather on the lawn of the state capitol. We've seen crowds of thousands of people march down our interstates. And on Saturday, many of you witnessed a semi-truck barrel into a crowd of 5,000 or 6,000 people. Fortunately, there were no injuries. That truck driver got on Interstate 94, I-94, switched over to 35W in the midst of the road closures and came upon that crowd. No charges have been brought against that driver. It was, in the view of MnDOT and State Patrol, an accident that he ended up where he was. Again, to bring our viewers up to date, at about 3 o'clock today, in a few seconds, hopefully, the Attorney General will take to the podium. He will announce additional charges, upgraded charges against Officer Derek Chauvin, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, and the 3 other officers involved in the death of George Floyd. It happened last Monday night. Those officers are Thomas Lane, Tou Thao, and Alexander Kueng. And they will also, we're told, be charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and manslaughter. Chauvin's charge will be upgraded from third-degree murder and manslaughter to second-degree murder. The third-degree murder charge will stick. It will stay in there for jurors to consider. This is typical legal protocol in a case where there will be immense amount of evidence, immense amount of testimony to try and figure out exactly what happened on that night. This will be watched all around the country. It already has. The upgraded charges and the additional charges is being watched all around the country. It's what many of those who've been protesting and demonstrating around the country have been calling for since the death of George Floyd. They wanted all officers involved charged, and we will find out now exactly what that means for a prosecution team as our Attorney General will take the podium. In the meantime, let's listen in to the preview of what's about to happen today. Let's listen.
Taking your questions. He will not be able to answer any questions about evidence or how evidence is evaluated, any question about witnesses, any question about the timeline of events that led to Mr. Floyd's death, or any investigative detail. It is all under investigation. It is currently confidential, so I just want to set that expectation right now. With that, Attorney General Ellison.
First of all, thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Myself and my friend Mike Freeman want to share some information with you. I want to begin with a reminder, and that is that we're here today because George Floyd is not here. He should be here. He should be alive, but he's not. About 9 days ago, the world watched Floyd utter his very last words, "I can't breathe," as he pled for his life. The world heard Floyd call out for his mama and cried out, "Don't kill me." Just 2 days ago, when I became the lead prosecutor in the murder of Mr. Floyd, I asked for time to thoroughly review all the evidence in the case. And we looked at the evidence that's available, and the investigation is ongoing at this time. I also said that I know it's asking a lot of people to give us time, particularly people who have suffered for decades and centuries of injustice, to be patient. And yet, we did get that time. And together, a very strong, experienced team, which included County Attorney Mike Freeman, his team, and my team, we reviewed the evidence together with the BCA, and we have something to announce today. Before I announce it, I want to say thank you for the patience of the people who they've shown me and our entire team in pursuit of justice, and I'm here to make these announcements right now. First, today, I filed an amended complaint that charges former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin with murder in the second degree for the death of George Floyd. I believe the evidence available to us now supports the stronger charge of second-degree murder. We've consulted with each other, and we agree. Second, today, arrest warrants were issued for former Minneapolis police officers J.A. King, Thomas Lane, and Tou Thao. Finally, I'd like to announce that today, Hennepin County Attorney Michael Freeman and I filed a complaint that charges police officer King, Lane, and Thao with aiding and abetting murder in the second degree, a felony offense. I strongly believe that these developments are in the interest of justice for Mr. Floyd, his family, our community, and our state. I'm the lead prosecutor in this case. I'll be speaking and addressing the public, but this is absolutely a team effort. We are working together on this case with only one goal: justice for George Floyd. I want to thank first Mr. Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman, who has been a true partner in this matter at every step of the way. His experience and insight have been invaluable and will continue to be counted on by the team. I also want to thank County Attorney Freeman's professional staff who have cooperated and worked together with my staff and the investigating officers from the very minute this case started. I also want to thank Superintendent Drew Evans of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and his professional staff for the care and speed with which they are conducting this investigation. And I want to thank especially U.S. Attorney Erica McDonald and Special Agent in Charge Rainer Drolskagen, who are conducting a parallel federal color of law investigation. I have heard directly from the leadership of the Department of Justice that there is full support for her leadership in pursuit of her investigation. And as she put it so well, one team, one goal, one mission. I agree 100%. As I said earlier, I thank Mr. Floyd's family. I think, and I can speak for Mr. Freeman and I jointly thank them, along with U.S. Attorney McDonald. We thank the community for their patience in allowing us the time and space we need over these days to lay these charges. As it is so hard to do, I now ask for continued patience. This case continues to be under investigation. We will not be able to say very much publicly about the investigation, except that we encourage anyone who believes that they have evidence in this case to come forward and to be cooperative with the investigation. As we develop the case for prosecution, which will also not be we will not be able to say very much publicly about it, because our job is to seek justice and to obtain a conviction, not to make statements in the press, but to do our talking in court. So I ask for your patience again while we limit our public comments in pursuit of justice. I also ask for your trust that we are pursuing justice by every legal and ethical means available to us. I also want to add a word of caution. The investigation is ongoing. We are following the path of all of the evidence. Wherever it leads, we are investigating as quickly as we can because speed is important. We're also investigating as thoroughly as we can because being complete and thorough is critically important, but it takes time. The reason thoroughness is important is because every single link in the prosecutorial chain must be strong. It needs to be strong because trying this case will not be an easy thing. Winning a conviction will be hard. In fact, County Attorney Freeman is the only prosecutor in the state of Minnesota who has successfully convicted a police officer for murder. And he can tell you that it's hard. I say this not because we doubt our resources or our ability. In fact, we're confident in what we're doing. But history does show that there are clear challenges here, and we are going to be working very hard and relying on each other and our investigative partners and the community to support that endeavor. To the Floyd family, to our beloved community, and to everyone that is watching, I say, George Floyd mattered. He was loved. His family was important. His life had value. And we will seek justice for him and for you, and we will find it. The very fact that we have filed these charges means that we believe in them. But what I do not believe is that one successful prosecution can rectify the hurt and loss that so many people feel. The solution to that pain will be slow and difficult work of constructing justice and fairness in our society. That work is the work of all of us. We don't need to wait for the resolution and investigation of this case to start that work. We need citizens, neighbors, leaders in government and in faith communities, civil and human rights activists to begin rewriting the rules for a just society now. We need new policy and legislation and ways of thinking at the municipal, state, and federal levels. The world of arts and entertainment can use their cultural influence to inspire change that we need. There is a role for all who dream of a justice that we haven't yet experienced. In the final analysis, a protest can shake a tree and can make the fruit fall down. But after that fruit is in reach, collecting it and making the jam must follow. The demonstrations and the protests are dramatic and necessary, but building just institutions is more of a slow grind, but equally important. And we have to begin that work as well. We need your energy and we need everyone's help right now. Thank you very much. Thanks. We'll take a few questions. Yes, ma'am.
Numerous acquittals, which acquittals in other cases, notably Rodney King case, which is just compared to, have created massive protests and massive rioting, massive demonstrations, and massive unrest.
We believe we have a duty to charge the charges that fit the facts in this case when we have done so. And so our concern is to put all the energy we can into putting forth the strongest case that we can without fear or favor of anyone or anything. These charges are based on the facts that we have found, and we're going to pursue them.
The Hennepin County attorney, obviously, you got the case from him. Was he going to plead this case as a murder-free case? Is that why the state took over? That is what sources have said.
The Hennepin County attorney did an excellent job by gathering facts and has worked cooperatively with us at every single step of the way. We consulted with each other on these charges. We believe that these are the right charges. Mike Freeman and I we've signed a complaint for these additional charges, and so that's what we're doing. So
the whole nation, indeed the whole world, has been awaiting some type of announcement from your office. Can you describe the process involved in your deliberation and what impact you think today's decision might have, not just in Minneapolis, but for those across the country watching you right now?
unfortunately, I can't delve into our deliberative process, but what I will tell you generally is we gathered all the facts that we could. We reviewed the criminal statutes. We looked at case law. We consulted with each other, and we arrived at these charges. We believe that they're justified by the facts and the law.
What does this impact have on them, this decision?
The pursuit of justice is always good and right. And I want to signal to them that we hope that they continue to raise the cause of justice, but do it in a peaceful manner. It is their right to express themselves. And with that, I will say that they should continue in their own communities to get together to build just police community relationships. We need the faith community to be involved. We need arts and entertainment to help inspire us toward justice. We need everybody. There's a lot more to do than just this case, and we ask people to do that.
How long do you think it's going to take to actually get this case together? I mean, probably there's a lot invested here. Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months?
I want to thank you for asking that question, because part of my comments were to help set expectations in a realistic light. In order to be thorough, this is going to take months. And I don't know how many, but it is better to make sure that we have a solid case, fully investigated, researched before we go to trial, than to rush it. And so it will take a while, and I can't set a deadline on that. Way in the back.
Attorney General, Chris Rexman, Carolina. The Floyd family had asked for a first-degree murder charge as well as their attorney. You decided to charge second-degree unintentional murder while committing a felony. Can you explain what that charge means, unintentional murder versus second-degree intentional murder, please?
Well, according to Minnesota law, you have to have premeditation and deliberation to charge first-degree murder. Second-degree murder, you have to intend for death to be the result. For second-degree felony murder, you have to intend the felony and then death be the result without necessarily having it be the intent. So that's the state of the law. The felony would be we would contend that George Floyd was assaulted, and so that would be the underlying felony.
Do you accept any plea deals in this, or do you expect all four to go to trial? And secondly, when will the body camera footage be released?
I really don't have any idea of what plea negotiations or anything like that. That's simply way too early to begin that conversation. At this point, we are preparing to try this case. If something else happens along the way, we'll see. But at this point, we don't have any plans in that direction.
Body camera footage?
That is something that I don't have anything to report right now. At this time, we're focused on investigating the case. And so I think at this time, I will consult with the BCA and other partners on the case, and we'll come to a conclusion about that. Again, we believe in transparency, but we also believe in a thorough investigation, most importantly.
General, have the 3 officers been taken into custody?
I'll allow Mr. Drew Evans to address that issue. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Drew Evans. I'm the superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. We are in the process of taking the officers into custody. I can report that one is in custody now, and the other two we are in the process of taking into custody and expect them to be this afternoon.
Could you talk about, have these officers provided any statements to your investigators, which traditionally happens after a death in custody? Have you spoken with them?
I will, as the Attorney General said, we can't speak about all the details of the case other than what's really in the complaint at this time. I will tell you with any investigation, as I've told you all from the very beginning, we have teams of investigators from the BCA jointly investigating this with the FBI, trying to obtain all information. In this case, I will tell you that is a regular course of all of our investigations to attempt interviews with all of the officers. We have interviewed numerous individuals in this case, and additional information will be provided as we move forward.
Attorney General, do you have the folks you need to do this, or will you be seeking some sort of outside counsel or special counsel as you're authorized to do under the law?
At this time, I believe we have the team to complete this work. I would like to just introduce David Voigt as well. He is a deputy at the Attorney General's office. He heads the criminal division, and he has the lawyers to get this done. And also, we have some experienced lawyers at the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. We're working on this thing together.
In terms of the timing of this decision, I know the Floyd family was hoping to be able to have more information on these charges before the memorial tomorrow. How much did that factor in your decision, as well as the protests with them calling for these across the country as well, and growing access?
You know, I could say that I did not allow public pressure to impact our decision-making process. I was prepared to withstand whatever calls came. We made these decisions based on the facts that we have gathered since this matter occurred, and made the charges based on the law that we think applies. So that's my answer. Yeah.
Describe a little more about your relationship with Mike Kueng, how this is going so far,
It's going fine. It's going great. I spent a lot of time in Hennepin County when I was a trial lawyer myself, and I know all the lawyers there. I respect them all, admire them all, and we're going along fine. Can I introduce you? Okay. Andy Lefebvre, he represents Hennepin County Attorney's Office, his first deputy for Mike Freeman, right? No, that I'm going to let the people who prosecute cases every single day to prosecute this case. Now, it is true that I've tried a lot of cases, and I've tried homicide cases, but on the other side of the courtroom. The people who know how to prosecute, I'm going to let them do that work. You know, I think it helps me anticipate what some of the attacks on our case might be.
Trial here.
I see no reason why we can't get a fair trial here.
With the charges that were just filed, my math is correct. Do the three officers now face the potential same maximum sentence as Officer Chauvin?
Yes. Well, but yes, sir.
I apologize if you've addressed this before, but does your involvement in this case now put you on the sidelines in terms of the legislative process and working for police reform legislation?
No. I'll continue to do all the duties that I have, which involve legislative, which involve a lot. We've been very active in the civil space. We've been active in representing state agencies and government. I'll continue to supervise that as I always do. But I feel very confident in it because I have excellent professionals who are going to be focused on this like a laser beam every single day.
Attorney General, could you just take us into that room when the decision was made for you personally, for this case, to file these charges, the moment you had personally?
I feel a tremendous sense of weight. I feel this is a very serious moment. I can honestly tell you I take no joy in this, but I do feel a tremendous sense of duty and responsibility.
Are they going to be at Oak Park Heights in max security, or are they going to be put somewhere?
I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe.
I would just answer that in terms of that is left up to the various sheriffs that we work with on this. They make, as Commissioner Schnell noted the other day, security decisions in the best place for everybody in light of everything that's going on right now in the Twin Cities. Again, those are decisions based on the analysis of the sheriff, and they work closely with the Department of Corrections to make sure that they have everybody in their custody where they should be based on safety assessments.
Thank you, everybody. You'll have a release later.
Thank you all very much. I will say to them that I pledge and I promise to hold everyone accountable for the behavior that we can prove in a court, and that if I don't charge it, it means that we did not have the facts to do that. So I'll simply say that as the people who are legal professionals, professional prosecutors, we are taking our duty seriously, and we are working with the people who gather the facts, and we have done the work that we believe is possible, ethical, and right. Yeah, well, I mean, look, let me be honest here. I mean, our country has under-prosecuted these matters in Minnesota and throughout the country. And so I think the trust is a result of historically not holding people who are public guardians accountable for their behavior in situations where we should have. So that, I think, is the origin of the trust problem. But we can't control the past. All we can do is take the case that we have in front of us right now and do our good faith best to bring justice to this situation, and we will.
And with those words, Attorney General Keith Ellison of Minnesota begins a very long process of trying 4 former Minneapolis police officers, beginning with Derek Chauvin, the man you see there, for murder. All 4 now face felony charges of second-degree murder in some form. For Derek Chauvin, it is second-degree, upgraded from third-degree to second-degree murder and manslaughter. Third-degree murder charge will also be a part of this process. The other 3 officers, second-degree aiding and abetting, second-degree murder, and manslaughter. All of those charges on all of those officers carry essentially the same maximum prison time if convicted. In making this announcement, Keith Ellison said, "I believe the evidence supports the upgraded charges of second-degree murder for all of those officers in some form." So they have officially filed the complaint to upgrade and to add additional charges to the officers, asking for continued patience for the public. He recognizes this will be a very long process. We can't say enough about how much we need to encourage people to be patient. This will be a long process, and they will move it forward as quickly and efficiently as they can. He also added, and this is important because history would confirm something like this, trying this case, he says, will not be easy. Getting a conviction will be very difficult. Fox 9's Tou Thao, present at that press briefing. He joins me now with the very latest. Theo, basic upgraded charges, but all carry very serious felony charges.
That's right, Randy. It was interesting here in the room. We saw the Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman, who basically had this case stripped from him. Governor Walz over the weekend put Attorney General Keith Ellison in the lead, and County Attorney Freeman in a background supporting role. The two of them stood side by side up there, but then Freeman left before taking questions. And the one that I wanted to know was if Freeman had planned to plead this case initially, and that was why potentially the state had stepped in. Ellison did not say if that was the case, but he said that both he and Freeman are in agreement on these upgraded charges, the upgraded murder charge against Chauvin and the aiding and abetting charges against the two other officers. He did not give a timeline for when the case would go forward. He did say that he thinks that he can get a fair trial in the Twin Cities and would not have to move it elsewhere.
One of the things that the public is wondering right now is what is the status of those other three officers. We did get an answer on that as well.
Yeah, that's right. One of them we know has already been booked into the Hennepin County Jail. That would be J. Alexander King. The other two have not been taken into custody yet, but the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Superintendent Drew Evans said it's their expectation to arrest both of those two other officers later this afternoon. We don't know where they're going to be held. Of course, Derek Chauvin is in isolation at Oak Park Heights, the maximum security prison. And as for the other three, we're not sure if they're going to be held in county prison, in county jail, or in state prison.
I thought it interesting, Theo, too, you mentioned that combined effort involving Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman in a lesser role, but Keith Ellison did mention the fact and made note of the fact that Mike Freeman is the only attorney able to successfully convict a Minneapolis police officer. Explain that process as it unfolded.
Well, of course, that was just last year in the Mohammed Noor murder trial. Different case, of course, this time around, and Ellison said that it would be a difficult prosecution to win, something that he would probably say about all of his cases. And he pleaded with the public's patience yet again. He said, thank you for the patience to get this far, not mentioning, of course, the unrest in the streets. And as for the future, he's warning people that this is going to take a long time. He did not talk about the possibility. He was asked about the possibility of a plea deal and didn't really get into that. He said essentially that now's not the time to talk about that.
All right. Thank you, Theo. Appreciate it. Well, no, you'll have more coming up at 5 o'clock as well. He did say at one point he was asking for peaceful dialogue, Keith Ellison, I'm referring to peaceful dialogue to continue the conversation in and around a just criminal justice system for all in this country. Peaceful is where we find Hannah Flood right now at 38th in Chicago, where many people have gathered over the course of the last week. And for the most part, since the riots on Friday night, Hannah, it has been peaceful there.
Randy, this has kind of been called sacred ground. This has kind of become a memorial to George Floyd and his life. You see a lot of artwork here, a lot of flowers left, messages left, and the mood out here today is really light. It's really hopeful and excited. But with all of that comes a lot of emotion. I talked to a lot of people who kind of just poured their heart out to me as saying, I didn't think I would ever see this happen. I talked to the pastor who has a church here on this corner. Him and his members of his church have just been out here every day giving out free food, kind of acting as people to just talk to out here. And that pastor told me he never thought he would see the day that all four of these officers would be charged. But a lot of people, Randy, out here are also telling me this is only the beginning, right? We have a whole trial to go through, and people tell me that they fear momentum being lost and that the charges never really come to fruition to a conviction. So that's what a lot of people out here have been saying today. That's great. That's what we wanted. And now we just have to keep this momentum forward to get that conviction. So definitely a lot of hope here, but still kind of that apprehension and people reminding each other we still have a ways to go on this.
On that note, Hannah, do they believe that this is a really good first step, though? I understand the apprehension. We understand the sort of holding of your breath in many ways about what the next step could be. Can you actually, as you note, get a conviction of Minneapolis police officers, former Minneapolis police officers? But do they feel this is really sort of a calming step?
Yeah, Randy, I asked a couple of people today, does it feel like things are changing? Does it feel like the world is changing? And people told me with protests happening in all 50 states, even, countries across the world, they feel like this actually really could be some change. And just the fact that, like I said, people saying they didn't ever think in their lifetime that the 4 officers would be charged is a huge step forward. It's a huge piece of hope. And again, something that they're hoping this momentum of hope and excitement really carries through this whole movement here and carries through this court process until they hopefully get a conviction. So I would say definitely the hope today outweighs kind of that apprehension, but people really just want to keep getting that message out there that this is not the end, that this is not over. But definitely, Randy, a lot of people telling me this is just a huge, momentous step in the right direction.
And are you getting a sense, Hannah, tomorrow, of course, many know there's the memorial service for George Floyd here in the Twin Cities, expecting thousands to attend that. Do you get the sense that many of the people you see there today are looking forward to that as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people really are. There's been memorials out here, a lot of praying, a lot of religious leaders coming by to kind of offer their condolences. And I think for people, it will just be a really kind of symbolic, I don't want to say way to it's not going to end things, but kind of just a symbolic way that we're moving on and moving towards the next step. So I get a feeling that a lot of people are really looking forward to that service tomorrow to continue getting those messages of hope. And I think for a lot of people out here, they told me it's amazing to see that George Floyd's life, his legacy, and the city of Minneapolis is really on the map. So I think that's another piece that people are looking forward tomorrow, is just another chance to get this story out here. Someone told me that for the first time with George Floyd, with this video that went out, he told me today, it sounds like people finally hear me. I've been saying this, but now they finally hear me. Now they finally see it. So I think with that memorial service tomorrow, it will just be even more eyes on George Floyd, on this issue, and on this movement that people here are hoping to continue.
All right, Hannah Flood at 38th in Chicago, the memorial area now for George Floyd. We are in the process of going to another press conference and briefing where Benjamin Crump, the Floyd family attorney, will also speak about these charges. Again, second-degree murder charges upgraded from third degree for Derek Chauvin, and you can see it there on the screen. Third-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter, that's what he will be tried on. A prosecution team led by Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. Benjamin Crump, the Floyd family attorney, will be a very big part of this process of prosecution as well. The other 3 officers, Thomas Lane, Tou Thao, and J. Alexander Kueng, also now charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and manslaughter. Interesting to note, all felony charges and all carry the same maximum prison time if convicted on this. One thing that Keith Ellison said, Attorney General Ellison said, as he was wrapping up this briefing a short time ago, he says, this is a very serious moment for us, a very serious moment for Minnesota, a very serious moment for the country. He says, I take no joy in having to prosecute this case or these cases. In other words, he recognizes the impact of the outcome of a trial or trials like this. He also recognizes the impact that a process like this can have on families and on citizens in the state of Minnesota and around the country. He said, I believe the evidence does support a conviction on the upgraded charges of second-degree murder. He's asking for continued patience. He said, we can't say enough about how we need to encourage people to be patient about how this process unfolds. We are at a point where we are making steps in the justice system, and we want to make sure that people understand it doesn't happen overnight. It's a very tough case to try. He also said that the BCA took to the podium and said, we now are in the process of arresting the other 3 officers, 1 already in custody, the other 2 in the process of being taken into custody. You may remember that Derek Chauvin was moved from the Hennepin County Jail to the maximum security prison in Oak Park Heights over the weekend. It is not known exactly where the other 3 officers there they are right there, will be held once those charges are processed. It is a process that will take time. He's asking for peaceful dialogue in the process to continue the communication over a just criminal justice system in this country. In other words, there's fear all around the country, and you heard it from Hannah Flood, from the people that are down at 38th in Chicago, that now we have charges, but what happens next? Do we drop the conversation? Does the move for change end with this as a long process of trying this case continues? The Renaissance Hotel is the site where this press conference is about to take place. You can see some civic leaders, some civil rights leaders taking to the podium, and Benjamin Crump will be among them. This press conference is a reaction to the charges that have now been leveled against those 4 Minneapolis police officers. And let's listen in.
Unprecedented time period that Attorney Ben Crump has come in and been able to move this case forward. When Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner, and I came last Thursday, I talked to the governor at the advice of Ben Crump, and we all said that it would be to the best interest of the public if the Attorney General had the case. It has been his acumen as an attorney that has guided more cases than anyone I know, which is why we call him the Attorney General for Black America. Some lawyers want civil suits. We work with Ben because he wants civil rights. And today's arrest, though we may have wanted murder one, is indicative of his skill. It's a first step toward getting some justice for this family. On tomorrow at the funeral, we will lay out a national move that will deal with all of the cases and how we're going to go forward with this case as a linchpin for a new movement for police accountability. But I will address that at the funeral. But first, before Ben speaks, the son of George Floyd, who is the victim here, is going to make a statement, and then Attorney Crump. Quincy Mason.
I am happy that all the officers have been arrested. My father have not been killed like this. We deserve justice. That's all I have to say.
Attorney Crump.
Thank you, Reverend Al, and well said, Quincy. We want justice. That really is the statement that people all across America are marching in cities saying, we want justice. We want equal justice. And I'm very grateful to Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network for always answering the bell, even when the media isn't around, when unarmed black people are killed unnecessarily and unjustifiably and senselessly. Him and National Network always answers the bell. Gwen Carr is exhibit 1 for that. When Eric Gardner said he couldn't breathe, it was Reverend Al Sharpton and National Action Network who made sure, even when people's attention left and went to Ferguson and went to Michael Brown, it was Reverend Al who was still with Eric Gardner's family, because people forget they're killing black people so quick that you can't keep up. And so we are here proud that this family's call for justice was heard by so many people. I mean, not just in Minnesota, but in New York, in Houston, Texas, in Europe, in Australia. I mean, everywhere. People have heard this call for justice for George Floyd. I do want to acknowledge the family's gratification to Attorney General Keith Ellison. We obviously were disappointed when the previous district attorney said things like there may not be evidence to support a crime. That was devastating to this family because we had all saw the video. And Reverend Al, we couldn't unsee the video. I mean, we saw it. You all saw it. One of the witnesses, Donald Williams, said that he watched firsthand George Floyd die. And he's the voice you hear on the tape saying, y'all are going to kill him. He literally said that it was like watching George suffocate compared to a fish out of water. How it is fledgling, and then the fish stiffens up, and then the fish never moves again. He said he witnessed that. But we all witnessed it too. And because we witnessed it, we got emotional. And I pray that these emotions will have everybody act. So Attorney General Keith Ellison, the family is grateful. He has a long track record, Reverend Al, as being a champion for civil rights. He said it best today. He swore an oath to do justice. He didn't say just to do justice for black people. He didn't say just to do justice for white people. He didn't say just to do justice for brown people. Attorney General Keith Ellison said he swore an oath to do justice. And as Quincy said, that's all we want. Plain and simple. We just want justice, nothing more, nothing less. So as his family prepares to memorialize George Floyd tomorrow at the North Central University, where Reverend Al Sharpton will deliver the eulogy, and there'll be a lot of people really emotional. We don't want you to lose that emotion as the days and months go by. As Tesla Figueroa just told me, we cannot celebrate because an arrest is not a conviction. And we want justice. You know, we don't want partial justice, we want whole justice. So I'm grateful with all the lawyers who are working with me on this matter, Attorney Tony Ramanucci, Attorney Chris Stewart. We're making a united front. This family is united in their quest for justice because we believe this is the tipping point in America where we finally address something they don't like to talk about, Reverend Al, the fact that there are two justice systems in America, one for black America and one for white America, when there should be equal justice for the United States of America. And so all these officers, I say a quick word about the autopsy before I turn it back over to Reverend Al, and we'll try to answer some of your questions. The autopsy conducted by the family by Dr. Michael Bowden from New York and Dr. Alethea Wilson, impressive, sharp sister who is the director of pathology and forensic science at the University of Michigan. When they conducted their autopsy, they concluded the manner and cause of death medically was mechanical asphyxia because of the knee on his neck and the two knees on his back that were pressing down on his lungs, not allowing it to contract so air couldn't flow to and from, and it cut off the blood to his brain. The legal cause of death based on the autopsy by the family was homicide. Clear and to the point. Reverend Al, they said that the EMT records show, and they found this based on the autopsy, that when they arrived, the male patient was unresponsive and pulseless. They put him in the ambulance, and they said they tried to use the Lucas devices to shock him. He still remained unchanged, his condition. When they delivered him to the emergency room at the hospital, he was still unresponsive and pulseless. Therefore, they have concluded that the ambulance was the hearse for George Floyd. And that's why we demand justice, because one of the officers said that I don't think he has a pulse. Maybe we should turn him on his side. And the audio, Reverend Al, from the police body cam, Officer Derek Chauvin said, no, we'll keep him in this position. That is intent. He intended not to help a man who did not have a post, even though police officers, by their very definition, are first responders. He was handcuffed with his face down without a post, and he kept him there for an additional 3 minutes. And I know this is very difficult, so I'm gonna be quiet because this is Quincy's father. To many of you all, he's a hashtag. For him, he's the person who gave him life. That's all. Reverend Al?
Well, I'll have more of what I said in the opening statement. I think it's a step, but it's going to be a long haul. We must turn this moment into a movement. I will be making specific announcements tomorrow during the eulogy about how we're going to mobilize. We must remember, in the last 30 days, we've seen Ahmaud Arbery killed in Brunswick, Georgia. We have seen Breonna Taylor killed in Louisville, Kentucky, and then now we're here with the case here with George. And clearly George Floyd is a spark that came, that people are coming out at the risk of their lives in a pandemic to rally and march. So the difference about this is that people have had enough. This combination of a trio of racism forced people out of their comfort zone. And I think that it's time for us to mobilize nationally and answer this. And we'll be laying that out tomorrow. Any questions?
All right, you're listening to the Reverend Al Sharpton, Quincy Mason, the son of George Floyd, and Benjamin Crump, the Floyd family attorney, reacting to Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison's announcement of upgraded charges against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin and the 3 other officers that were there at the scene when George Floyd died. Second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and the officers involved abetting second-degree murder: Thomas Lane, Tou Thao, and Alexander King. This process will be a long one. It will be taken on, as we said, by lead prosecution team involving Minnesota State Attorney General in conjunction with, we found out today, Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman. All those parties will be involved in the prosecution of those officers. At least one of those 3 other officers has now been taken into custody. The other 2 are in the process of being taken into custody. I want to make a note here. Tomorrow, thousands of people will be expected in Minneapolis, are expected to pay tribute to George Floyd. A public memorial will be held at North Central University in Minneapolis. It begins at 1 p.m. You can watch Floyd's memorial right here on Fox 9. We will have coverage live throughout the day. Until then, I'll send you back to regular programming. Join us at 5 o'clock for Fox 9 News at 5. I'm Randy.